Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to welcome back to the stage panel moderator Shereen Marisol Meraji, host of NPR's Code Switch, and panelists Emily Musil Church, Holly Gordon, Veronica Juarez, and Somjita Mitra.
Okay, we promise we're going to take questions this time, so don't worry. All right, the last panel was about the here and now for women. This panel is about the future, and I really do want to piggyback on what Emily Chang said. You can't be what you can't see, and start with Emily Church, actually, here. Emily's with XPRIZE, and Emily, like me, loves to talk about Black Panther and can talk about Black Panther all day. Wakanda forever. Everybody Wakanda forever, please. So Emily, for those people who are like, what does this have to do with anything? Connect the dots for us. What does Black Panther have to do with the work that XPRIZE is doing and the future for women in tech?
Sure, great. Thank you for giving me the microphone to talk about Black Panther. We on our prep call, we started talking about it, and we thought, okay, this is actually really relevant. We're sitting here in Los Angeles where we make movies, and one of the most incredible things about Black Panther, I won't do spoiler alerts for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but it is an imagined world where the future and the technology is created by a fictional place, Wakanda, in the center of the continent of Africa that has been untouched by the ravages of colonialism, Atlantic slave trade, where people have been able to create their own systems of being. So we've talked here before about breaking the rules, and if you can see it, you can be it. What you see in that movie is just not even breaking the rules, but creating entire new planets, entire new ways of being. And that's something, part of what's so powerful about that is we are at a moment in history where any of us can create new worlds and ways of being. So XPRIZE, where I work, we're a nonprofit organization located here in Los Angeles, headquartered in Culver City. And we run incentivized competitions for people from all over the world, to entrepreneurs, innovators, to harness the power of technology to solve the grandest challenges that we face as human beings. So what's really exciting about that is we're saying we don't think the traditional problem solvers are necessarily the ones who are fixing these problems. So an XPRIZE will launch in an area that says, okay, the market isn't fixing this problem, governments aren't fixing this problem, but we, the people, anywhere in the world, we can fix this problem. We can use technology. We can hear new voices, new ideas. So what's been really exciting for me, I've been there about 4 years, what's been so exciting to see is we have everybody, really. I mean, we have school children who are teaching themselves how to code, to try to teach children to have self-learning software. We have baby boomers who are leveraging their knowledge and wisdom, who are participating with designers and engineers. We have teams from all over the world. Our Global Learning XPRIZE that launched a few years ago, we're in the middle of a field test in Tanzania. We had 198 teams from 40 countries, people from all ages. There's an age range of, I believe it was 80 years, of people who are participating to try to build a future and to say, whatever existed before, we can create something new. And that is what's such a powerful message. And I felt like with Black Panther, seeing that, not to mention the question of representation. Emily just spoke about, if you can see it, you can be it. And there's something, particularly the character of Shuri, who's
Yes.
King T'Challa's
For those
little
of you
sister.
who've seen the movie.
Again, it's not a spoiler alert. But she is the little sister of the king, and she is a tech genius, and she's cool, and she's spunky, and her lab is just amazing, and it's not unlike anything you've seen before. So it's envisioning a new way to be. It's a character we haven't seen before, and that's important for women, men, boys, girls, people of all different backgrounds, to say the answers, the best technology, the building the new future, this can come from anyone, anywhere.
Holly, I feel like...
I'm like dying to jump
Yeah,
in.
everybody clap for that. Snaps, claps, all the things. Holly, yes, I want you to jump in. You're a participant, you're the Chief Impact Officer there, and you're super passionate about how telling stories can really change the world and change our future. And specifically when we talk about women, how telling women's stories can make a better future for women. So go.
So yes, I'm super passionate about that. I'm super passionate and got so excited as you were talking about this moment that we're in to really redefine structure, right? We were talking a little bit about structure in the first panel, and that what art and story can do is help you imagine the great leaps forward. Like, who would have thought 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, that you could accept a call from your watch in the grocery store and see the person's face, right? And so I feel as though we're in this place where technology is helping us reimagine what's possible. And so some of our structures need to catch up to that, our education structure, our work structure, et cetera. And so the connection to what I do at Participant is that I believe that art predicts the future, right? Artists can see the future and help us see it too. And funnily enough, they also hold up a mirror to our past and give us ways to reflect on how far we've come or how far we haven't. And we have a participant this year. I actually just walked into this job about 3 months ago, but I walked into this incredible slate, and I came from most recently a background of women fighting on behalf of women and girls with a project called Girl Rising. Yay. So this is a comfortable audience for me. And I walked into a slate that included, it started off with a fantastic woman, which if you guys haven't seen, you've got to see. It's a Spanish language film that won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film that stars a transgender woman in the lead role. And first time ever, Danielle Vega. And what was so exciting for me to see that movie was that it's a love story. It's not a transgender story, it's just a love story. And so I'm so proud to be part of a company that puts that forward in the slate. The second film was The Post, Katharine Graham. The statistic about 4% CEOs are women in California. Katharine Graham was the first woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And in that film, you see all the dynamics of the 1970s when she was trying to make a decision about publishing the Pentagon Papers. And you have this moment of, wow, have things really changed? We need more Katharine Grahams. Thank goodness for Katharine Graham. And ironically, she was a very small part of the first movie about the Pentagon Papers. So that's an amazing, amazing look back kind of film. And then next on the slate, we have RBG, a documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And in the fall, On the Basis of Sex, which is a fiction story about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And man, watch On the Basis of Sex, and you start asking yourself, whatever happened to the Equal Rights Amendment? Yeah. Because what Ruth Bader Ginsburg has done is case by case is fight incremental battles. That with one fell swoop, we'd get across the line on equal pay, on parental leave, on so many of these policies that actually affect men and women, particularly women of color on the equal pay front. I was astonished by the statistics. So, what I hope to do with the content that we create at Participant and with the help of all of you, because without leaders bringing the content forward, without the power of the box office, right, the stories don't get told. And without leaders in communities bringing things like RBG or On the Basis of Sex or A Fantastic Woman into their communities and saying, hey, look, this is what the future can look like, we don't make progress. So my job is to connect with leaders and make change with film. And man, am I lucky.
I have a pitch, by the way, for your next film.
Well, I have to talk to you about one of that we're doing
Okay.
about race and education and the opportunity gap. So
I was
pitch.
thinking Sonia Sotomayor biopic. We got RBG.
There you
Let's
go.
go. Let's
One
go,
of my
Sonia.
favorite- and one of my favorite RBG quotes is, when would you be satisfied with equality on the Supreme Court? And she said, well, 9 justices, of course, 9 women. She's like, no one ever worried about 9 men.
Veronica, so you intersect with so much here. I mean, Emily was talking about, incentivizing people to come up with solutions to problems that we see every day and that we deal with, and Lyft does that in terms of transportation and providing transportation. So you could talk about that, but you're also an advisor for a VC called VamosVentures, and Emily Chang was talking about money, right, and where the money is coming from, and you can also talk about that. So VamosVentures is a VC that supports Latino and Latina entrepreneurs. The term now is Latinx, the non-binary term, so I want to put that out there, because at some point we're all going to be saying Latinx, but we're not quite there yet. But yeah, talk about the work you're doing with VamosVentures and why that's really important for the future that we want to see for women and women of color.
Absolutely. So first, I just want to say that it's really an honor to be in this room with all of you. And I want to acknowledge what Mount St. Mary's is doing for women of color and Latinas in particular. As a proud Latina from Houston, Texas, I'm truly grateful to be here today. So I'm really interested in solving big problems and solving big social challenges and social injustices. And at Lyft, we've really proven that you can do that through transportation. Not only can you do that, you can make money doing it, and you can do it as a good business model, because it's not just about doing business, it's how you do business. Transportation still remains one of the biggest barriers of access to opportunity. If you don't have transportation, you can't get to a job, to an after-school program, to a medical appointment. And when I work with so many different nonprofit organizations, they still tell me after they have built models and services and raised money, they still need help with transportation. So we are really working to solve that. But what I'm also interested in is how are we working to solve all of the other big social challenges? How are we working to solve food deserts and predatory payday lending? And who's using technology to work on the foster care system or on the criminal justice system? So I really think it would be interesting if we started to incentivize entrepreneurs to solve around those big problems. And if we're going to solve those big problems, we're going to need a diversity of perspectives to do that. There's just no other way. You have to have a diversity of perspective and a diversity of thought, which means that it's critical that you have a diversity of experiences. So I really love what we're doing at VamosVentures because we are focused on funding that seed stage Latinx entrepreneur. So that first point of access to capital. So when we talk about, we've talked a lot today about money is power and access to capital. It absolutely is. And if you do not have the network to access capital, you will not get funded. So who is funding these folks if they do not have a network to do so? I also just want to make a shameless plug. We are still raising our first round. So if you are interested or very seriously have people that are interested as we close that last gap, please come see me.
I actually just want to share a little data. Judith, I stole this from you, from a talk you gave. Judith, raise your hand. Judith was on the first panel. And it's data about VCs. Right now, 92% of partners in VC firms are male, 78% are white, and there's very, very little representation for African Americans and Latinos in venture capital. So yeah, if you want to help out, VamosVentures. Hit up Veronica. All right, Somjita. We're going to you for some real talk here. You've got the data on the LA area for women in the workplace, and based on that data, where do we really need to focus our resources and our energy to create a sustainable and equitable future for all women in the workplace? Like right now, I feel like we're talking really high level stuff, but for everyone at the ground level all the way up to the C-suite.
Well, I think in LA, what I study is the LA County economy, is what's going to make it grow, what's going to make it thrive. It's the 19th largest economy in the world, and but there's some pretty significant challenges. You know, one of the main ones is our lack of educational attainment across the board. About 40% of us have a high school degree or less, and what that means is there's lifetime earnings challenges, poverty challenges, unemployment issues, and so what we want to do is try to focus on how we can increase opportunities for women, for men, for people of color. And one of the things we wanted to focus on is a lot of our growth in our jobs. You know, we have the lowest unemployment rate in the last 17 years now. So we're just about full employment, which means that everybody who wants a job has a job. And now what we want to focus on is making sure they have the right kind of job. They have a job that's going to sustain them, that's going to support them and their families, and give them the quality of life that they deserve. And that's one of the things we want to focus on is, you know, increasing opportunities in those workplaces, in those industries, in those occupations that are really going to move the needle forward and, you know, address our long-term poverty challenges in the area.
What's one thing, I mean, I really do want to go, well, actually, before I do that,
Sure.
Does anyone want to jump in here and start like having the organic conversation? Or do you want me to just keep asking questions? Because the way we did it with the last panel is I had everybody kind of do a little free-for-all. Do you want to do that? Or I can just keep asking questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Somjita,
Yes.
you know, what can people in the audience do to address these challenges that you're talking about? The wealth gap, these poverty challenges.
One of the main things is to look for opportunities around you that you may not consider. You know, we talked about the Ready to Run program. Another one is advocating for housing. Affordable housing is one of the key determinants of people moving out of poverty. There's 100,000 families in LA County that are led by single moms with children. So there's 100,000 families that are living under the poverty line. So, you know, they don't have access to affordable housing, and this is going to create long-term challenges, not just for them, but for our future generation. So it's either advocating for housing, it's supporting people who are running for office. It's really trying to make sure that, you know, it's one person thinks they can't make a difference, but all of us together can definitely make a difference.
And so I didn't have a question because I started taking notes. And I was taking notes because we have a series at the end of the summer called America to Me, which is about the opportunity gap that exists for kids of color as rises to the top in a 10-part series that focuses on high school kids. It's a year in the life of like 12 high school kids outside Chicago in a well-to-do suburb in a school that prides itself on its diversity and inclusion. And through the lives of these kids, freshmen, juniors, seniors, and you know, you're like cringing, you're laughing hilariously, but what you see is the structural challenges that are almost 90% of the time race-based that these kids are facing. And that it is the biggest challenge in our country today, I believe. And when I start to hear that we're 40% of Californians have less than a high school degree, and that it's the intersectionality to housing, I'm thinking of America to Me, because that's because Charles's mom, who's worked so hard to get him into this school district, just lost her IT job, and now she has to move out because her rent is too high. And so Charles comes to school, and he's worried, and he can't study. So there are one way to start to learn about the intersectionality of our country today and start to really leap forward so that we can have a Black Panther story where we reimagine the structures of our society is to understand better the intersectionality and how it's affecting our kids. Mm-hmm. And not just kids in the poorest neighborhoods, although that should be enough, but kids in neighborhoods that are really trying to do the right thing and to live a diverse and inclusive future. So,
I just want to add something to that point. My best friend sent me a text the other day, a copy of a report that said, if you are a black male in this country, you are just as likely to end up in the criminal justice system if you're raised in a household with income in the millions or if you're low income. And that's just,
That is not okay.
Yeah.
So we have to start talking. We have to start a dialogue, and that these dialogues are really, really hard, and they have to be followed by an understanding of structure and a commitment to change. So what you have to do is start the step by saying, I may not know what to do, but I am an advocate for change.
Emily, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, and I think that starts really young. So I'm going to put a different hat on for a second. I'm a mother of 2 young children. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And one of the things I've noticed, a boy and a girl, is that there are a lot of parents of girls who say, I want my daughter to feel empowered and see she can be anything in this world, but mothers of sons aren't doing the same thing and having female heroes for their sons. Similarly, my children are both white children, and for me to also say it's really important for them to have African-American heroes that they have. So it's partly like, if I can see it, I can be it, but also that I can see that everybody else can be it too. It's not just own self-empowerment. So I would say, just to remember that whoever you are, whatever, if you're a parent, a grandparent, a caretaker, if you go into, I volunteer in my daughter's school, a public school here in LA, and to just go in and read books to kids so they can envision a different future, so that then we can make those analyses when we get older to say, if it's normalized when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, when that's when children are really figuring out what the world is, where the boundaries are, and that you can just start blowing those away, or at least so that they can then analyze it and change it as they grow.
Somjita?
I was reading an article that mentioned in Australia there's a female ambassador, a STEM ambassador, who goes around to all the high schools and just provides an opportunity for the girls there to learn about STEM careers, STEM education. And I was thinking we can easily replicate something like that in LA County. Australia has 20 million people. LA County has 10 million people. We can have an advocate for STEM, maybe going into the underserved communities. We have we have the richest counties in the country, and we have some of the poorest, more challenged counties in the country where people, children there don't know about STEM. They don't know beyond the next day, the day-to-day. So if we can have increasing opportunity, not just at high schools, but going into the high schools around you, and the elementary schools and the junior high schools of underserved communities, and being an advocate there, I think that would be one of the biggest change makers we can do.
One thing we haven't talked about is age. And I just turned 40, and actually Emerald Archer mentioned to me that I am now considered an older worker.
Welcome to the club.
Thanks, Holly.
It's cozy up there.
And I was like, whoa, shocking. And when we were talking about the future, obviously Gen Z comes to mind, right? I'm thinking Emma Gonzalez, she's changing the future at Parkland. I'm thinking Yara Shahidi, who is an activist, and in the entertainment world, she's on Blackish and Grownish now. She's Gen Z and she's doing amazing things. And then I'm like, wait, what about Gen X? What is there room for me? Is there space for me? What about, the millennials who are pushing 40? And what about the baby boomers, women out there? So,
We see you.
Emily, is there room for us in the XPRIZE?
Yes.
Or are we just too old?
Okay. Let me get myself comfortable here. Yes is the short answer. I think there is fear with technology, and a lot of people think that they've been left behind, particularly once we reach a certain age. We're in the same club. And I think rather than fear, there's sort of like, is this going to be good? What's going to happen when the robots are here and AI? To think about, because they're here. Okay, so just don't worry, I wouldn't waste time worrying about it. Go create. Because we're going to say, well, what's going to happen with it? Well, it depends on what we all do. So it's not just a thing. Robots don't just magically appear. You design them. You teach robots. We are programming ethics. We are programming, everything you look at is a vote. Every app, somebody sat there and decided on each thing you click on. So are we just giving away all of our power to the same people to be the same ones who are creating? So if you have ideas, I would say, it doesn't mean everybody has to go out there and be a coder. Somebody said, should everybody over 40, I got this question, should everybody over 40 learn how to become a software developer? If that's your thing and you want to, go for it. Like Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, we've got great organizations out there that are teaching people how to do this. But if that's not your thing, or you're not comfortable with that, make friends with engineers. You have a voice, you have perspective that other people don't have. And it's not just that there's room for you, it is that we need you. We need you.
Yes, we don't want, the brotopia creating the AI of the future.
Yes.
Because we're going to be living in that world, and it won't be for us. Does anyone else want to jump in on that? Or should we start taking Holly, you want to
No,
jump in?
I was going to say, let's get questions.
Yeah,
I felt
let's
bad
get
for them
questions
last
in.
time.
Okay.
I can always talk, but
Yeah, ditto. Okay, yes, this is coming from, speaking of technology, these are coming from Twitter, right? Twitter. Okay, I'm going to open this up to everyone, and then whoever wants to jump in can jump in. Where do you see gender equality / parity in your fields in the next 10 years? And this question is from Anna. That's a big one.
I would like to say something about, I don't know that I have the exact answer of where I see it, right? I think if we all work towards change, we're going to see change. But that means that you have to consistently work towards it. So we were just and you have to have the uncomfortable conversations. We were just talking about the future of women in the workforce. I'm a single woman. I'm 35. I brought up to my company, hey, I noticed our fertility benefit does not cover the freezing of eggs. That's really, to be quite honest, that's really not something I wanted to talk about to them or to 800 people here, but
Thank you for doing that.
I told my best friend last night, oh my gosh, I'm gonna talk about fertility at this. Anyway, the point is that unless we talk about it and have those uncomfortable conversations, we're not gonna create a workplace in which it is comfortable for women, right? And that women who are in their mid-30s and are not ready to have a family can still feel like they can plan for one when they are and continue to work extremely hard and do everything that they want in their career. So I think we will see a lot more parity if every single person is willing to have those difficult conversations or those uncomfortable conversations.
Somjita?
Well, I'm an economist, and so that's pretty much a male-dominated field. Last November, I was on a panel discussing housing issues, and I was representing Los Angeles County, the biggest, most diverse county in the country, and I was on a panel with other Southern California counties, and they were all older white men, and all of them. So 5 counties, I'm the only woman, I'm the only person of color, I'm the youngest by about 2 decades, and I was, it really was a conversation of being inclusive versus included, because I almost felt like this was like a token person representing the largest county, 10 million people. And, so the way I see economics and the field growing, I think, we have a lot of room to grow in it. And I welcome it. I reach out, I ask for, interns coming. I always speak at like high schools and colleges, and I encourage women. I'm gonna go to an elementary school tomorrow for a career day. And instead of like firefighters and nurses, I'm like, go become an economist. So, I'm really trying to help make, it make more diverse, so, yeah.
Holly?
I'm hopeful. I hope Danielle's going to be hopeful too. Because of those women who got together on Sunday, and more importantly, because it feels like this awakening, I, Tanya, Lady Bird, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, it's suddenly like, oh, these movies make money. People want to see strong female characters. And in my other side, so in the sort of creator's side, we have a pipeline challenge, and I think that those hard conversations need to be had around, okay, so who's directing this story about a woman, or who's directing this story about a man or a war? Thank you, Catherine Bigelow. But on the other side, with the social change side, I got to tell you, I am often in female-dominated fields. in social change. So I would actually like to see more men in the sort of grassroots world of making the world a better place, and really getting involved in community building. And obviously there are many, but more in terms of leading nonprofits, et cetera.
I think also don't assume that somebody else is asking the questions that you have in your mind. And sometimes it's very simple. So I know, for example, in a prize that I worked with at XPRIZE, we added to our form when we were, where are you from, what's your name? We said, how many women are on your team? And it had never been asked before. And we saw an increase in women on teams. And now other teams, other prizes have started to just ask the simple question. Or my husband works in Hollywood, and he will get a list of names, and he'll say, why are there 10 directors he should talk to? And he'll say, there's no women on here, or how many of these are people of color? And it's just a simple question, and usually the person is like, oh, I just didn't even think about it, which that's a whole other issue. But that it's sometimes just asking those simple questions, and then also talking to the people around you. In the office a couple of years ago, we just self-organized to say, we work in the tech industry. We're working with entrepreneurs, and to get this message out that it really is everyone. Well, we said, so what do we need to do as XPRIZE to have more women in the office, more women in leadership in the office, more women prize leads, more women judges, more diverse, so not just female, diverse in every way, judges, funders, board members, throughout the whole ecosystem, and to ask those questions and to say, what can each one of us do to be more inclusive? And sometimes it really is a simple thing of saying, well, why don't we all just invite somebody? Or why don't we all in our own personal network make sure that these people are hearing that they could compete to win $10 million, and anybody can do it. So go tell all of your networks, and the more people you can get, the better. And that, as it was said earlier today, it's not just that diversity is a good thing you should do. That's how we're gonna build these better futures. That's how we're gonna have our Wakandas, that we need to have all of these voices.
Okay, next question. This is from Alicia, I'm not sure which, but when in meetings with executive men who may not be allies, how do you talk about the representation of women to make it relevant to your projects/work? Did I do that right? Let me try this again. When in meetings with executive men who may not be allies, how do you talk about the representation of women and make it relevant to your projects and your work?
If it's already relevant to your project, how do you open up the conversation without feeling like
Alicia!
So because I'm going to be in a meeting with somebody, and I've got mixed feedback about whether or not I should broach that issue in a general meeting. And
Yes.
how to deal with it, because it is essential to the content I'm creating. I see the content I'm creating as being part of the solution. I know a small part, but it's part and parcel of how I talk about it. And so I don't want to avoid it, but then I don't want to necessarily say the wrong thing.
Right, so when is the appropriate time to bring up these issues of gender and racial diversity in a conversation? Right, Alicia? Does that work? Okay.
So just to recap for those that didn't hear, she has a meeting coming up with male executives. She's not an ally, but the gender piece is a huge part of the content and the project. So I will say again, you have to have the uncomfortable conversation when you don't want to have them. But in that case specifically, and this is what I've started to really learn, is building the business case. There's so much research now and data and studies that show that if you have this kind of diversity of thought or gender parity or strong women, female leads, you're going to make more money. Your projects are going to succeed. There's going to be a real market for that. So it's actually, I hate to say you have to take it out, but there's a business case to do it. So just align with the business case if that's what they're aligned with.
And I would sort of add to that in almost any difficult situation, if you can actually try to remove your emotion from it and start with the problem that you're trying to solve as the grounding piece. So restating it, right? So this is the outcome we're trying to reach. I wonder what that means as we start thinking about what kind of gender diversity we need to bring to the project itself. And you can follow it up with data says, or you can, but just grounding it in the problem you're trying to solve and trying to divorce yourself from the tension of like, oh my God, I'm bringing my thing in here and I'm going to be judged for bringing my thing. In fact, what you're doing is the right thing for the project. So you wouldn't like say, let's not do this, you know what I mean? It's just right for the project.
All right, we're going to do one last question here. It's from Delise. Do you think having some kind of incentive for companies to have childcare available is feasible? An incentive for companies to have childcare available is feasible. Maybe a break from a tax incentive from the federal government or something. Patricia?
Anything is feasible.
Anything
you just
is
need to
feasible.
organize, get people together. Anything is possible.
Patagonia has it on site. It's funny that this question, I started my career at ABC News with Diane Sawyer, who I grew up watching on TV, and decided that I wanted to be like Diane Sawyer. And I then luckily had the huge honor of working with her for years, and she didn't have kids, and I was like in my 20s at the time. I didn't either. I think my kid is calling me, by the way. My watch is ringing. She is. She was really all about childcare at the workplace because she saw how it was impossible for women producers to rise through the ranks because the hours are so long in television. And in fact, I loved that job, and I left because of that. There were no female role models, no one who had kids. You had to drop things that news is relentless. And she realized that for the better of the company, if we wanted to continue to have women producers at ABC, we needed to solve the childcare thing. So here we are 15, 20 years later, and it's a question from the audience, and I don't know the answer. But man, it sure does make sense, because I think the men would like to see their kids too, a little bit sometimes. And this is the thing, like equal pay works for men. I keep thinking about our retirement account and all of the pay that I didn't earn because I had to step out of the traditional jobs, and how my husband is gonna have to live in a smaller house because we don't have much the same amount of savings we would have had if I'd been able to continue working in a reasonable way, right? So it's like, it sucks for everyone.
Somjita, is there any data to support how childcare in the workplace actually does help women build wealth?
There isn't data other than like anecdotal, but in terms of inclusive, the 15 points, I think all of it we can do. Maybe it's flexible work schedules, maybe it's working telecommuting, maybe it's just understanding different challenges. Maybe it's childcare, maybe it's taking care of an elderly parent, maybe it's whatever other challenges people have, and just having a workplace that recognizes and appreciates bringing in talent of all kinds and working to help them be productive. I think our businesses will benefit. I think our economy will benefit. So I think it's really good that have that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about attracting great talent, but also retaining talent. I mean, it's so important. You've grown people in these companies, and then they leave because they can't make it work because they have kids, or they need elder care help, or some sort of flexible situation at work.
Because the structure doesn't work. It's not that they can't do the work. It's
Right,
just
I'm
that
sorry.
the structure, right, no, I'm just building on what you're saying, right? So the structure that doesn't work, because we can get the work done, it just might not be sitting at a desk for this, it just might not look like it's always looked.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told I have to wrap this up. So I want to thank all of our panelists on stage. Thank you, Emily, Holly, Veronica, Somjita. This has been an incredible conversation. Yes, huge round of applause. Thank you.